Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Society, the art and science of watch collection. Today I want to talk about two different things. First of all, I want to start off with an interesting watch brand called Louis Erard. They started back up in 1931, and the kinds of watches they have are very interesting in this respect. First of all, you know what you're getting. It to me is extremely important. And Louis Erard doesn't really have a lot of, I'll say it, sort of airs, so to speak, but they make some nice watches, nice looking watches too. The other thing that I like that they do is that they basically say, well, we don't make the movements, but we do make the complications. And then not only that, they tell you which complications they've made and which they're using by somebody else. So it's like, if you buy one of these watches, there's no surprises. You know what you get, and I think you get a little more than what you pay for. So this is the kind of affordable watch brand that I like for lots of reasons. The other thing I'm going to talk about too, after we look at some Louis Erard watches, is the California dial. This was sort of an interesting thing, and I'm going to talk about that with just a little while. I think you might find it interesting. Okay, so we've got a lot to do, so let's get going. First of all, Louis Erard has a number of different models and classifications. The first one is called the Excellence, and these are sort of their top of the line or higher price ones, but even so, they're not crazy expensive. The first one over on the left with the brown strap is a regulator, and there's several regulators in this Excellence group, and I like that. Now, what's inside the watch is got the Sellita SW200-1 with Duprat complication 14072. Okay, so you know that there's something in that watch that is, and you know what it is. You know the Sellita SW200-1, and you know the Duprat complication. Okay, so there's not, it's something like, oh, we do that, even though they do complications. Now, the watch next to it is it's another regulator, single dial, plus it's got a power reserve indicator. Now, this particular watch has an interesting movement, the ETA 7001, which really was a Pazoo 7001, and when ETA bought it, they renamed it. I think they put in some other little gear in there too. Now, this one is listed as 1,697 euro. By the way, all of the prices are in euros because they were so much all over the place. The only sort of stable and probably most accurate one I could find was in euros, and I found them in pounds and US dollars and other kinds of currencies. So for now, these are all euros. Now, this one, it says it's a ETA 7001 with a Louis Erard in-house complication. And so, when you see a company that says, okay, we're using somebody else's movement and somebody else's complication, they tell you what it is. When they then say this is a Louis Erard in-house complication, I tend to believe them. Now, in this particular case, I know a little about the ETA 7001, and it's a very thin, it's best known for its thinness, and it's pretty simple time only, okay? In fact, I don't even, there may be, don't think, but I could be wrong, that they come with a sub-seconds, sub-dial at 6 o'clock. I think so. When we look at this, we see 1, 2, 3 dials. There's the hours, there's the minutes in the center, and then at the bottom, there's the seconds. And then over at 9 o'clock, there's a power reserve indicator. So I think these are the complications that they added to it, because the 7001 is a pretty simple movement, and in order for it to have this kind of display, you really do need somebody who knows what they're doing to add to it. And that's one of the things about Louis Erard. This is not, this isn't a perpetual calendar or anything, but it is something interesting. Now, on the other hand, this other one, all three of these, by the way, are part of this excellence, what they call the excellence. They have different models. The chronograph over on the far right, the chronograph has an ETA 7753. There is not, the ETA 7753 comes with everything, okay? It's got the subdial, or it has the post for the subdials at 3, 9, and 6 o'clock. It's got the center seconds, and then it has the hour and minutes. So you pop that in, make a dial for it, and then put it in the hands, and you get yourself a chronograph. And for $2,041. So again, there is no kind of stuff that we really did a lot of to this. You know what you're getting, and you're not paying a crazy amount, because I have seen watches with the ETA 7753 in it that they'll start around 5,000 or 6,000 euro for the same watch, and then they give some phony baloney name. Instead of saying it's an ETA 7750, they'll call it a B52 or something like that. So anyway, this is what I like about this watch company. You know what you're getting. This next model that they have is called the 1931. This is the year that Louis Erard was founded. And these sort of have the more vintage look, and not heritage, but the vintage styles. This one on the left is a chronograph with an ETA 7753, and it sells for 1856. Again, not bad. These are in euros. The Solida SW260 is in the other one, and it sells for 1058. Now, the difference between these two, one's a chronograph and one isn't, but the dials have this kind of highly detailed that you find in certain watches. The old pilot watches and some of the Mariner watches have those kinds of dials in it. 1931. This is sort of a group that I like a lot. Now, the next group is called a sportive, and this is sort of funny. These are the sports watches. The one on the left has an ETA 7750 chronograph. It's got that sporty look with the tachometer values and so forth along the bezel. And the other one has more of a setup for a diver with that little, that quarter, 1 o'clock quarter sort of set off specially. It also has a steel bracelet. I don't know. Yeah, I'd prefer a rubber bracelet, but most divers are used by what we call desk divers. I'm certainly one. I don't have a diver yet. I got to get a diver. Okay, well these are a couple more sporty watches, and if you have a diver, I think that you can do a lot of stuff in more sporty environments. The Rolex Submariner is a popular one. It's a sports dial. This one's got a unique look, and it's got a great price on it, €1285. So that's part of their sportive line. Now they also have sport watches in some of their other lines. Here's the Heritage, and the Heritage line, or the Heritage model, has several different ones. One is just a Heritage without any kind of sub name to it. They have another one called the Classic, and then they have another one called the Heritage Sport. So there's more than one sport. I'm not sure why. I think the sports models compared to the sportive are better priced or lower priced. This one's 924 euro on the far right. One in the middle is called their Classic. They got a little window there that you can look at some of the movement. It's not a tourbillon, but at a glance, someone might think it is. This one's 1134. And then on the far left, you have the another, just sort of the regular Heritage 831. These Heritage ones, I'm not sure why they would have one called the 1931, and then another one called Heritage, and they have both models, I suppose, have more of the more vintage look. These are a lot less vintage looking though, so it's, I think they're talking about the sense of the kind of thing making Erard more of a long-term company. They're 1931. That's almost 100 years ago, so that's something. All right, moving right along. We have the last group of watches that they have is really two different groups. One is called the Emotion, and the other one is called the Romance. These are both primarily for women. They have a quartz model. The Romance are your quartz ones, and they're nice looking watches, more like a more bracelety, especially in the Romance. In the Emotion, got an ATA 2824, solid kind of ETA movement. Time only, it's got some diamond indexes plus that little, over at 9 o'clock, it's got a little diamond sort of spinning thing. Really interesting design. Now the gold, one of the things I don't like about any watch company is gold plating. I've always been grumbled a lot about Frederick Constant because they use gold plating. The thing is, though, is that when you look at a gold-plated watch and you look at a gold watch, until the plating starts wearing off, you can't tell a whole lot of the difference. But what you can tell, I mean, you can find 2 or 3 times the price for gold over stainless steel or plated. Anyway, so these are the two groups of watches for women, the Emotion and the Romance. They have a whole series of them. The Romance not as much, but they're really an interesting design that you can actually use for telling time. This particular one is time and date both, the Romance. All right, now the next thing I want to talk about, I don't know, this is one of those things that is sort of interesting. This is the California dials. And the California dials started back around the late 70s, early 80s, when there was a big vintage thing at the time. And a lot of people bought Rolexes from the 40s, and a lot of those were from the war years, and just guys would go off to the war. Those, especially in the South Pacific, the weather there was not too friendly to the dials. And so they came with these. They're some pretty chingered up dials, so they took them in to have them redialed. And this one guy who did it lived in Southern California, and he redid the dials. And on some of them, he had this, at the top were Roman and at the bottom were Arabic numbers. And they were sometimes referred to as Roman Arabic. And people would see them, and the guy would show his Rolex that had been redialed and say, look at this, I had this redialed and that's cool. Apparently a lot of people said, yeah, that is, I want that done. And so they said, who did it? Well, this guy in Southern California did it. So they came to name it the California dials. That's where they got their name from. There's an example of a California dial. It's something, again, it's different. I'm working on one right now that has been giving me fits. Here's my California dial. It's a made watch, and something has got my my winder, not the winder, but the little stick that goes in with the crown, and that it won't come out. It's stuck. So I got to figure that one out. Me and my California, so I can have a California dial. The guy who actually did it, his name was Kirk Rich, And here are a couple Rolexes from that period. The one on the left is has what a regular Rolex dial, and the one next to it shows a redial on it, and there's put in a Mercedes hour hand, and then I don't know, regular looking hand. There's a close up of it, of one of the California dials on a Rolex. Now, like I said, this is this shop in Southern California by a guy named Kirk Rich, California dial. But what happened was sort of interesting. A number of other companies started they say, well, we're going to have one with California dial. Glycine has it. Panerai, I think Panerai calls it their California something. That Panerai something California. They don't call it California dial, but that's what it is. Another little company called Aristo. They also had a California dial. A lot of lume on that one. Nomos has one of the most interesting ones. I think this is from their club, one of their club models on the Nomos. And they switched it around. They have the Arabic numbers on top, and they have the Roman numerals on the bottom. And they only use two. They only use the 8 and the 4. So there's some interesting variations on the California dial. Everybody calls it the California dial, though. And it's one of those things. Anyway, I'd like to get your opinion on the Louis Erard watches and see what you think of those. And as always, this is an invitation to subscribe if you'd like, and any comments that you might have on the California dial. And until Sunday, when we have a very interesting collection review, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the Art and Science of Watch Collection.